Okay, let's be real for a sec. Who here has ever felt like their brain was kind of stuck on autopilot?
You know those times when you're really trying to change a habit?
But it feels like you're fighting a losing battle against like years of ingrained routines. I remember this one time I was totally convinced my morning coffee routine,
Was like hardwired into my very being.
like my neural pathways were straight up demanding that extra spoonful of sugar.
Yeah.
Speaking of hardwired today, we are diving deep into breaking the habit of being yourself.
To uncover how we can actually use the power of our minds to create lasting change.
You're definitely not alone in feeling like tethered to those deep-rooted habits.
And this book really dives into how our subconscious minds hold the key to transformation.
It uses insights from both neuroscience and quantum physics.
Neuroscience and quantum physics.
Okay, that sounds pretty intense. I'm ready to have my mind blown wide open. Where do we even begin?
Well, imagine this.
Your body actually memorizes emotions.
It's similar to how a record player etches grooves into vinyl.
Okay.
If you've been feeling a certain way for years.
Those emotional patterns become like deeply ingrained in your system.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So using my coffee analogy, my body got so used to that sugar rush every morning.
That it almost became like a craving.
Right, precisely. And breaking the habit of being yourself really highlights that our bodies can even become addicted to emotions.
Just like substances.
We can develop a craving for things like guilt.
Or even anxiety.
Wow. I never thought of it like that before. I always figured a little guilt or worry was just part of the human experience.
So how do we break free from these emotional addictions?
That's where the fascinating connection between neuroscience and our potential for change comes in.
The book argues that we're not simply stuck with our pre-programmed brains.
We actually possess the ability to consciously rewire our neural pathways.
We can rewire our brain.
Is this book suggesting we can essentially upgrade our mental operating systems? That's pretty empowering.
Absolutely. And one of the first steps is understanding the power of the subconscious.
Think of it this way. Every thought, every feeling, every experience you have.
It's like carving a path through a dense forest.
The more you tread that path, the more defined and ingrained it becomes.
So those well-worn trails in our minds, those represent our habits, our automatic responses.
No wonder it's so hard to break free.
We try positive thinking and all that.
But it's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg if we're not addressing those deep-seated patterns.
You hit the nail on the head.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The book suggests that often we unknowingly let our environment dictate those subconscious patterns.
We become so used to reacting to external circumstances that we forget we have a choice in how we respond.
I know this all too well.
Ever walk into a room and instantly feel your mood shift?
To match the energy of the people around you. Suddenly you're stressed or anxious and you can't even pinpoint why.
Exactly. But what if, instead of being a sponge for your surroundings,
you could become what the book calls greater than your environment?
The book actually uses some inspiring examples of historical figures who defied limitations and manifested their visions.
Despite facing immense opposition.
Greater than our environment. Can you elaborate on what that means?
It sounds like it requires a tremendous amount of mental fortitude.
Imagine it as consciously choosing your thoughts and reactions.
Regardless of what's happening around you.
It's about recognizing that you have the power to cultivate an internal state.
That is not solely dictated by external factors.
It's like having a force field around your mind.
Deflecting those negative vibes and staying focused on the positive. Is that sort of what we're talking about here?
That's a great way to put it.
It's about consciously directing your focus and energy.
Much like an athlete training for a marathon.
They don't let the weather or their competitors dictate their pace.
They focus on their own performance and strive for their personal best.
Mental discipline, mental training.
So does this mean we can rewire our brains through sheer willpower alone?
Willpower is definitely a factor, but there's more to it than that.
The book highlights the incredible power of mental rehearsal,
suggesting that just like physically practicing a skill can improve our abilities.
Mentally rehearsing desired experiences can rewire our neural circuitry.
That's incredible.
Are there any real-life examples of this mental rehearsal concept in action?
Absolutely.
The book shares a remarkable story about a stroke patient who regained his ability to speak.
Through the power of mental rehearsal.
Even though he couldn't physically form words at first?
He would spend hours each day mentally rehearsing words, sentences, even entire conversations.
Wow, that sends chills down my spine.
To think that our thoughts have the capacity to reshape our brains in such a profound way.
Sometimes I get so caught up in this never-ending cycle of to-dos
And deadlines and just anxieties about the future.
that I totally forget to just be present in this moment,
I can practically hear my brain whirring away, stuck on fast forward.
as if life is just something to rush through.
You've just touched on another crucial aspect of breaking free from those ingrained patterns.
The concept of overcoming time by living in what the book refers to as the quantum now.
Living in the quantum now, it sounds like a concept straight out like a sci-fi movie.
But it also makes me think about those times when I'm so consumed by
Past regrets or worries about the future that I totally miss out on the beauty of what's right in front of me.
So how does our relationship with time factor into those deeply ingrained habits we've been discussing?
Our past experiences, especially those that are tinged with negativity,
Can actually make our bodies hold on to the past.
or even anticipate a future that's based on those past experiences.
And this prevents us from fully embracing the present moment and stepping into our full potential.
So we're almost like prisoners of our own pasts.
Replaying these old stories and letting them just dictate our present reality.
Does quantum physics offer a way to break free from this cycle? Because I'm ready for a jailbreak.
That's a great analogy.
And yes, quantum physics does offer some fascinating insights.
The book proposes that when we achieve true presence,
Like when we quiet those mental loops about the past and future.
we actually access what's called the quantum field.
Now this is where things get really, really interesting.
Okay, I am strapped in and ready for the wild ride.
Tell me more about this quantum field,
Imagine a realm of infinite possibilities.
where all potentials exist simultaneously.
This is the quantum field.
Okay.
And here's the truly mind-blowing part.
When we're fully present.
We tap into this field, and we gain more influence than we realize.
Wait, hold on.
Are we talking about, literally influencing the very fabric of reality with our minds?
This goes way beyond just thinking happy thoughts.
It does.
And the key is this.
By mentally and emotionally embodying a desired future experience.
We can actually influence the quantum field to make that reality more likely to manifest.
It's like we become conscious architects of our own lives.
This is blowing my mind.
But if I'm being honest, it also feels a bit overwhelming.
Is there a step-by-step guide to navigating this quantum field?
That's where the practical tools in breaking the habit of being yourself really come into play.
The book provides a framework for applying these principles.
To create real, tangible change in your life.
It emphasizes that this isn't just theoretical physics.
It's about harnessing these concepts to become the best version of yourself.
I am definitely picking up what you're putting down.
So how do we start bridging that gap between abstract concepts and actually actionable steps?
The book introduces a powerful meditation process.
That's designed to rewire the brain and cultivate lasting change.
And before you ask,
This isn't about emptying your mind or anything like that.
it's about consciously directing your focus and shifting your brainwave states.
Shifting our brainwave states.
Okay, now that sounds intriguing.
I've heard a bit about different brainwave frequencies, like alpha and beta.
But I'll admit I'm a bit fuzzy on the details.
Think of it like this,
Your brain operates at different frequencies.
depending on your level of activity.
So when you're alert and engaged in the hustle and bustle of daily life,
Your brain is primarily in the beta state,
but there are also slower brainwave states
like alpha and theta,
that are associated with deep relaxation.
creativity and enhanced learning.
Okay, so it's like our brains have different gears, like a car,
Beta is our everyday driving mode,
while alpha and theta are more like those lower gears for
navigating those winding back roads of our subconscious.
Exactly.
And just like shifting to a lower gear gives you more control and smoother handling on those winding roads.
Accessing those alpha and theta brainwave states allows us to tap into our subconscious minds.
And reprogram those deeply ingrained patterns.
This all makes sense so far.
But I have to ask, we're shifting gears
We're accessing the subconscious.
and potentially tapping into the quantum field.
But how do we actually cultivate a new self?
How do we make those changes last beyond the meditation cushion?
I can't just meditate once and expect to be a whole new person.
Right.
You're absolutely right.
Lasting transformation requires consistent effort.
It's just like tending a garden.
So we're talking about cultivating new thought patterns and behaviors.
With the same care and attention we would give to nurturing a delicate plant,
Precisely.
breaking the habit of being yourself really emphasizes that, creating lasting change.
It isn't about willpower or forcing ourselves to be different.
It's about gently and persistently guiding our minds towards new possibilities.
Nurturing those new pathways until they become second nature.
Like that morning coffee routine you mentioned earlier.
Instead of mindlessly following the same old recipe, we're becoming conscious creators of our own mental brew.
Does the book provide any examples of people who have successfully used these principles
To make tangible changes in their lives.
Absolutely.
There are some truly inspiring stories in the book.
That demonstrate the power of these principles in action.
One that stands out is about a man who had struggled with
Stubborn warts on his hands for years.
after incorporating the book's meditation techniques.
And focusing specifically on healing.
The warts completely disappeared.
Wow, that's incredible.
Our internal state, our thoughts and feelings.
Have the power to influence our physical reality in such a profound way.
What other success stories resonated with you?
Another compelling example is Monique's story.
She was struggling financially.
Feeling trapped in a cycle of lack and scarcity.
Right.
Monique's story.
She started using the meditation techniques to embody a feeling of abundance.
Of having all her needs met.
And then she won the lottery.
Now, I know winning the lottery isn't exactly an everyday occurrence, but
Of course.
winning the lottery is a remarkable outcome.
But the real takeaway from Monique's experience is that
By shifting her internal state to one of abundance
she opened herself up to new possibilities and opportunities.
that she might have otherwise missed.
It's like that saying.
The universe doesn't give you what you ask for with your words.
It gives you what you demand with your actions.
Monique didn't just wish for abundance.
She started acting in alignment with that desired reality.
And that shift in energy opened the door for incredible things to unfold. The more we align our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions,
With what we want to create,
the more powerful a signal we send out into the quantum field.
making those desired outcomes more likely to manifest in our lives.
It all comes back to becoming conscious observers,
Actively participating in shaping our realities.
rather than passively accepting what shows up.
This is powerful stuff.
It is.
And it all begins with developing an awareness of those subconscious patterns.
That are running the show behind the scenes.
Once we bring those patterns into the light of consciousness.
You can start making different choices.
Okay. This deep dive has given me a lot to chew on.
But before we wrap up, I have one more burning question about this whole quantum self concept.
The book mentions the importance of demonstrating.
Essentially, living as the new you that you're cultivating in your mind.
What does that look like in a practical sense?
It's about embodying that new self you're creating in your meditations.
About aligning your everyday actions and reactions?
With that desired state of being.
So it's not just about changing our thoughts and feelings in isolation.
It's about expressing those changes in the real world.
Making them visible through our actions.
Absolutely.
It's about how you respond to challenges.
How you interact with others.
Even how you talk to yourself.
Are your words and actions congruent with the person you are becoming?
So we need to walk the walk, so to speak.
But how do we know if it's working?
How do we receive feedback from the universe?
Breaking the habit of being yourself suggests paying attention to signs and synchronicities. Like those coincidences that seem too perfect to be random. Those unexpected events, opportunities, or encounters.
That seem to nudge us in the right direction.
It's about tuning in to those subtle cues.
And remaining open to the guidance the universe is always offering.
The more we embody our desired state of being,
the more attuned we become to those whispers of guidance.
It's as if the universe is constantly communicating with us.
Offering these gentle nudges and winks.
If only we could learn to decipher its language.
Yes.
And here's the exciting part.
As we become more aligned with our true selves,
our perception shifts and our reality expands.
We begin noticing things we might have overlooked before.
And making connections we wouldn't have seen otherwise.
This is incredible.
It's like we're not just passive recipients of reality,
but active participants.
Co-creating our experiences in collaboration with the universe.
And that's the beauty of it all.
It's about reclaiming our power.
Recognizing that we are not our thoughts or our emotions.
But the conscious observers who choose how to respond and what to create.
Okay, I'm feeling incredibly energized by this whole quantum self concept.
But let's be real. Change isn't always a linear path.
What about those inevitable moments when we slip back into old patterns?
Those negative emotions we're trying to overcome.
Those moments are a natural part of the process.
It's like learning any new skill.
There will be stumbles and setbacks along the way.
The key is not to beat ourselves up or get discouraged.
It's about acknowledging those moments,
learning from them,
and then gently guiding ourselves back to that desired state of being.
So it's a journey, not a destination.
And even those slip-ups can be valuable learning opportunities. The more we practice, the more those new patterns become ingrained.
Just like exercising a muscle?
The more we use it, the stronger it gets.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Right. We're striving for a more expansive way of being.
Not aiming for some, unattainable ideal of flawlessness.
Exactly.
And as we cultivate this awareness of our own patterns,
we also start to recognize those patterns in the world around us.
It's like the book says.
We're all broadcasting a signal out into the universe.
A signal made up of our thoughts, our feelings, and our beliefs.
And the universe responds in kind, reflecting back the reality we're projecting.
So if we're stuck in a loop of negative thoughts and limiting beliefs,
we're essentially attracting more of the same?
It's like we're creating our own echo chamber of negativity.
Precisely.
But here's the empowering part.
We have the power to change that signal.
By consciously choosing to focus on more positive,
expansive thoughts and feelings.
So we begin to attract a different reality.
It's like we're tuning our radios to a different station.
One that's playing a more uplifting and inspiring tune.
But let's be honest. Sometimes that mental chatter can be pretty relentless.
It's like those negative thoughts have a gravitational pull,
dragging us back into old patterns.
That's where the concept of being greater than comes into play.
It's not about ignoring those negative thoughts
or pretending they don't exist.
It's about recognizing them.
But not getting swept away by them.
Not allowing them to define us.
So we're rising above the noise.
Choosing to align ourselves with a more empowering and expansive reality.
It's not about denying the negative, but about not letting it control us.
It's about recognizing that we are not our thoughts.
Exactly.
And the more we practice this,
the stronger that greater than muscle becomes.
We're essentially building a mental immune system.
Becoming more resilient to those negative influences.
The book also touches on this concept of surrendering.
Surrendering to a higher power.
To the wisdom of the universe.
I have to admit, this is where my, logical mind starts to feel a little out of its depth.
I understand.
Surrender is often misunderstood.
It's not about giving up and becoming passive.
It's about letting go of the need to control everything.
Have all the answers.
It's about trusting that there's a greater intelligence at play.
A force that's guiding us towards our highest good.
Even when we can't see the bigger picture.
So it's about cultivating a deep inner knowing.
That we're connected to something greater than ourselves.
Something that's always supporting us.
Even when things feel challenging.
Precisely.
And it's not about blind faith.
But about cultivating a deep sense of trust in the unfolding of our lives.
Even when things get a little messy or uncertain.
So it's about aligning our will with the will of the universe.
Trusting that we're being guided even when we can't see the destination.
It's about letting go of the oars and letting the current carry us.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
And the more we practice this surrender,
the more we open ourselves up to receiving guidance.
To experiencing those synchronicities we were talking about earlier.
It's like we're becoming more attuned to the flow of the universe.
Allowing it to orchestrate our lives in a way that serves our highest good.
It's like we're stepping into a dance with the universe.
Trusting that it knows. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into breaking the habit of being yourself.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning,
and keep expanding your awareness.